Yeah, because then you have some kind of orientation. Then you're on an actual path and you can figure out how is the best way to stay on this path. But if you don't know what you want and you're not even thinking about that, you're kind of bouncing around on different paths. You're allowing yourself to be influenced, often without even realizing it at all. And then what happens? Then actually you're on someone else's path. And
Hmm.
how can you truly be happy and awake if you're on a path that is totally guided by somebody else towards somebody else's agenda? I mean, maybe you can convince yourself that you're happy that way, but I think we all have some sort of purpose here, or at least we have the potential to have some sort of purpose here. But in order for that to happen, some serious examination is required.
Hello, Mike.
Hello, Lona.
What a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise, thank you.
I'm pretty sure I've seen a few of your videos on YouTube, just these red glasses. Mm,
Yeah, they're a little distinct.
yes, it's very nice for you to join me on this podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm excited.
Today I'm talking to Mike Vera, and he is running a podcast called Healthy and Awake. So I'm pretty sure we have something interesting to talk today about. He's also a fitness coach and health professional. How would you say? What are
Board,
you? You know
yeah,
better what to say about you.
a board certified health coach. And with my Healthy and Awake podcast, I'm on a mission to make the world a healthier, more awake place.
Mm, wonderful. And I remember from what I listened or watched is that you are very much into bringing awareness for people to notice the brainwash that is going on. And that is quite interesting. And this is very much, it can be very much a topic of about awakening because we believe all kinds of interesting stories that are not ours and we don't know the truth until we know. So it will be interesting conversation.
Yeah, I think so. And if I may comment right off the bat, this term brainwashing, I know some people hear that and they tune out right away because they think of crazy conspiracy theories. And it's unfortunate because you can call it brainwashing, you can call it propaganda, you can call it whatever you want, but ultimately it's undeniable that influence is taking place and it affects all of us. And it is constantly in our environment with our phone, the TV, our friends, social media, you name it. And then the question is, if we're not paying attention to these influence efforts, how can we even make the best decisions for ourselves? Because we're not acknowledging those constant nudges. So, brainwashing is very much a real thing. And I suspect maybe we'll go a little bit deeper into that today.
Yeah, great. Okay, so the podcast is called Awakening Now. And here we talk about awakening. So I would like to ask you to share your definition of awakening. What is awakening? Awakening from, awakening to, what's the whole process? How you see it, please.
Yeah, I think there's a few layers to that, and it does mean different things to different people. Now, when I talk about awakening, I guess maybe I should start with my own story as to like what kind of woke me up. And when I was 13 years old, I'm the Napster generation, and we grew up being able to download anything on Napster. And so when I was 13 years old, I had discovered a stand-up comedian named George Carlin. And this was in his later years where he really let loose and said, be skeptical of what you read, question authority, challenge the people trying to tell you what to do. And for me, that was a very serious awakening moment because prior to that, I hadn't heard those sorts of things. I was just a kid in the school system who was told, listen to authority, accept what you're reading, don't be so difficult. And it was kind of refreshing to hear the opposite of that. And I really feel like that kind of woke me up and it stuck with me every day for the rest of my life, obviously, even today. And so that really shaped my worldview. And I started to examine those influences around my life, influence from authority, whether it was my parents, my teachers, or even some of the things you see on TV. And so ultimately, fast forward to today, that is what I talk about quite a bit is those influence efforts. And even when you walk into the store, Target, we might say to ourselves, I want to buy two things. That's it. I swear I want to buy two things. And then we
Oh,
all
that
know what
one.
happens. Yeah, what happens when we leave Target? We have 10 things or more, or our cart is filled. And that's not an accident. That is the result of influence. And so when I talk about waking up, I mean really paying attention to things that we might not otherwise externally, but also internally, like what really drives us that allows us to be influenced by those external forces. And both of those things, external and internal, you can really, just expand so much even on those two.
Mhm. Okay, so what is awakening then?
Yeah, awakening is to one, notice things in your environment that tend to go unnoticed because we are on a kind of autopilot.
Uh-huh.
So in that sense, awakening means to not be so automatic.
Aha, very nice.
And then
Okay.
further internally, really, in order for that to happen, you have to wake up internally, you have to wake up to a true sense of consciousness. And for some people, that just means like a cognitive sort of awareness. For other people, it's a spiritual type of awakening. And I think for me, it's a little of both. It's really the external, the internal, really just tuning into those sorts of things.
Hmm, very nice. Thank you so much. Um, I used to love this author called Richard Bach. I haven't
Mm,
read anything for a while, but there was this book called Hypnotizing Maria. And what he said in there, it fits so well here that I'm going to share. Um, I'm not exactly quoting it, but it was like this: suggestion accepted without the proof is hypnotism. So literally, we are getting suggestions all day long from when we are born. Do this, don't do that. Look like this, don't look like that. Think this, don't think that. And we are not checking if that's true, if it's valid, and we are being hypnotized by everything and everyone. And then we say, oh, this is my belief system. This is my opinion. This is how I see the world, except that none of it is ours.
yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And hypnotism is a good word for it because our environment is set up in a way to pacify us. I mean, we have entertainment and distractions and low-hanging fruit, things that are conveniently there for us to choose to do that really don't contribute to much, at least in terms of waking up. I mean, we can look, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's great to just chill and watch sports and, maybe have a drink with our friends and, all these little things. But to go again back to that word hypnotism, there are a lot of things that I feel further remove us from being awake and take us further away from being able to see what is really going on in the world and even what's really going on inside of us. And the worst of it all is that because of the way that our landscape is set up, it's very easy and comfortable to do these things. And I don't think that's an accident. I really think there, on some level, is a coordinated effort for us to make these decisions. And ultimately, it doesn't serve us, but it serves the people who are pulling those strings.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. It's like we are born into this system, into this matrix, and now
Yeah.
they have to wake up to what is authentic, what is real, what is not a brainwash.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I saw you have a project or something called Red Pill. Do you want to share about that? What's going on there with the Red Pill?
Yeah, that's actually an older project. So that has since evolved, but it did start based on, as you mentioned, The Matrix, that movie where the main character, Neo, is presented with a decision to make. He can take either the blue pill and things basically stay the same. He's in this matrix environment that's very controlled, very based on illusions, very comfortable. Or he can take the red pill, and that really wakes him up. It exposes the illusions, and it's not so comfortable because you actually have to face reality. And so for me, that was a perfect metaphor for what we are actually living. And now, I mentioned that it's changed since then. So that has become Avantia Health Optimization, which is maybe a little less controversial for people who, aren't familiar with the Matrix or those sorts of themes. But ultimately, we're still trying to accomplish the same thing, which is to help people have that awakening moment and really see what's going on so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. Because to kind of reiterate what I said before, when people are not awake and they're not even aware of what being awake means, they're kind of having their strings pulled and their buttons pushed. And it's almost like most of the decisions that they're making, they're not even aware of it. It's like decisions are being made for them,
Oh.
being placed in front of them. So it's as easy as possible to make essentially the wrong decisions. But once you start to pay attention to these things, if you are so-called red pilled,
Hmm.
you can better orient yourself through life in a way that best serves you. It's like, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish? How am I going to accomplish that? These are the questions that need to be asked if you want to get the most out of life and that you want to accomplish your vision. But a lot of that self-reflection doesn't even happen if people are really plugged in and hypnotized and asleep and not examining themselves or the things around them.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. When I meet somebody for sessions, when I work with people, the first question I always ask, it's this: what are you looking for precisely? It seems so simple, right? But how many people sit down and think and really get to that precise thing that they're looking for? Because there are so many things, so many strings are being pulled. You want this, you need to want this or that. But in the end, what it all boils down to one single thing that we are all looking for, and that's peace. And that peace includes being comfortable in yourself, in the environment, in your situations, in your life, in your skin, in your body, in your mind, being comfortable and at peace. And it's difficult to know that unless you sit down and really ask that question. But everything rolls out of that. Like, what do you really want?
Yeah. And even unpacking that further, some people have trouble accepting that they deserve peace, rather. I see that quite a bit where we'll explore in a session like, what do you want? And you can kind of hear underneath what they're saying, I just want peace. I'm not happy, or I'm always stressed, or I've been chasing this goal that ultimately that's not really what I want. That's kind of what I think that I want. That's what I've been convinced that I want. And then we explore deeper and it's like, well, the more I think about it, that's not going to bring me peace at all. That's actually, if anything, going to bring me more stress. And you really want to do well at my job, which really is, doing something for somebody else. It's like, okay, that's fine. But what do you want for you? So I couldn't agree more. A lot of people have lost this sense of self or purpose or meaning to the point where they don't know what they really want, or if they do, they don't know how to get there, or they might just be confused totally about what they want. So it can be quite messy. And as you mentioned, it seems like a very simple thing, but life isn't always that simple.
Yes. Oh, well, I used to do tattoos. So I would sit with somebody in a chair for 3 hours once a week and spend a lot of time with them and talking with so many people and just normal everyday people. And I would say, so what do you do? And some of them would cringe at that question because they hate what they do. They hate their job so much. And then, okay, fair enough. And what do you want to do? And the answer always comes back, I don't know. I mean, how can you do what you want to do if you don't even know what you want? And I think this is the basic question, and everyone needs to sit down and really find out from within what you really want. Then, when you know what you really want, the outside influence, you cannot really stick to it anymore.
Yeah.
They can only stick to people that don't know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you have some kind of orientation, then you're on an actual path and you can figure out how is the best way to stay on this path. But if you don't know what you want and you're not even thinking about that, you're kind of bouncing around on different paths. You're allowing yourself to be influenced, often without even realizing it at all. And then what happens? Then actually you're on someone else's path. And
Mm-hmm.
how can you truly be happy and awake if you're on a path that is totally guided by somebody else towards somebody else's agenda? I mean, maybe you can convince yourself that you're happy that way, but I think we all have some sort of purpose here, or at least we have the potential to have some sort of purpose here. But in order for that to happen, some serious examination is required. Easier said than done, though, right? Because examination can be quite not only difficult, but pretty uncomfortable too. I mean, some of us have trauma that we have to sort out before we figure that out. Some of us maybe just need a little help thinking about what our path might be, what our purpose might be. And further, sometimes people just need to kind of stumble into something. We just need to try things out to figure out what's right for us. We just need more experience because then we can say, okay, you know what? I tried this. That's not for me. But it did give me enough learning experience to know that maybe this other thing over here, maybe that's better for me. And you
Yeah.
try things out and that it can keep things interesting and can really teach us a lot about ourselves.
Mm. Trial and error. Not
Yeah,
this, not
yeah,
this. And then eventually it boils down to peace.
sure.
And you work in the health department, and I guess you talk about health options and all that kind of stuff. Can you share more about what you do?
Yes. So, as the board certified health coach, and I do emphasize board certified there because I know a lot of people can call themselves health coaches, which is fine. I know a lot of people do different things. But the board certification process means that I've gone through the education, training, and experience to help people in an evidence-based way with all the tools and skills that can best help them get there. And what that usually entails is regular meetings where people can be held accountable to their goals. And those are goals which were set thoroughly by exploring some of these difficult questions, like what do you want to accomplish? How are you going to get there? And we meticulously set goals because sometimes people might say something like, I want to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not exactly a goal, though. It's kind of a wish. I want to lose weight. It's not an action.
Uh-huh.
That's I could lose a limb and I've lost some weight. Does that qualify? Not exactly. So it's like, I want to lose weight. Good. That's the vision. Now, what are the goals that are going to fuel that vision? Okay, well, I'm going to maybe do things a little differently than I'm doing now. Maybe that means I have to change what I'm eating. Maybe that means I need to change how I'm moving. Maybe I need to get more sunlight. And so those are all things that unless somebody has a partner who knows what they're doing and has been there before and has helped others with this, it can often be a difficult process. And even if we do kind of have it figured out, we want to lose weight in X, Y, and Z way, it's very easy to get distracted along the way because we have all these marketers telling us, oh, buy this shake, buy this supplement, buy this exercise equipment, buy this, and all your problems will be solved. So, there are a lot of shiny objects out there that can distract us from what we're really trying to accomplish. And then we might find that those were the wrong decisions and we get discouraged from doing the right thing. We feel defeated. It's a whole process. It can be quite messy. And so
Mm-hmm.
having a professional like a health coach can really help reduce errors, can help keep them on the path, can help remind them why this is important, which can help them stay motivated. And I can go on and on and on. But it's something I really like doing because I get to help people with their health. And I am on a mission to do exactly that, make the world a healthier, more awake place.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Thank you.
Just, what a guide can do is just hold attention, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that a lot of us don't have is that attention and having someone to really listen to them. Because, we might be talking with our friends, right? But they're not trained in the ability to listen. In fact, most of us, when we're talking to someone, we're kind of just waiting for them to stop talking so that I can say the thing that I want to say. Oh, this is going to sound so good, and they're going to see how right I am. On some level, that's kind of happening. And that's fine, so we have some great things to say that I'm not judging that, but it is quite different from having a trained professional who is skilled in the art of listening because that can be very powerful. I mean, I'm trying to understand you on a deeper level. I'm trying to read between the lines. I might even be challenging you a little bit on some of what you're saying. And sometimes I'll even reflect back what you're saying. So you might say, oh, you know what? I want to lose weight just because I've always felt not so happy in my body and that's driven me. And so I might repeat that back. Oh, so what I'm hearing is that the reason you want to lose weight is because maybe there's some insecurities there. And they'll pause and they'll go, wow, you know what? I never really thought about it that way, or I never really heard it back. And that allows you to process it differently. And so having someone to listen to you and really focus in on that very intently can be a very powerful experience. And it's just not something we get a lot in our regular lives.
That's so true. Yeah. In my work, it's the same. I work with people who want to lose the self or see no self or get
Mm,
awakened, get enlightened, seeking, running away. And that listening and reflecting back really helps.
yeah.
Just to focus because so many distractions and so many shiny objects are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I would encourage anybody to try, because listening, I think, is something that many of us take for granted sometimes. We think to ourselves, well, I can hear, so I'm listening. But it's more than that.
Mm.
I can hear good, but listening is a very particular skill. It's something that requires you, at least on some level, to relinquish your own agenda, to relinquish your ego. And I say that respectfully, but it's not easy. And it does take work and it does take practice. And to reflect somebody's words back to them maybe feels a little weird in the beginning. If you're talking with a friend and they tell you something and you basically repeat those words back to them, it might feel a little weird, but it actually can normalize over time. They won't notice. People don't notice this. And it can be very powerful. And it shows that you're listening. It really does. I mean, if you repeat their words back to them, and especially if you change it up a little bit, you don't want to parrot what they say, like word for word. That might be a little weird. But to really be able to listen and repeat the core message of what they're saying back to them shows like, wow, okay, this person really is listening. This is someone I can trust. This is someone who can help me. And so I would challenge people to try to do that a little more in their lives because that's how you develop the skill of listening.
Mm. Yeah, not just to other people, what other people say, but listening to your own body, to your own emotions, to your own stories that are basically seeking attention.
Yeah.
I see that attention is such a precious thing. It's pure energy. And where it goes, things expand and open up. And wow, it's a pure magic, that attention. And everything wants that. Everyone wants that. It's the best currency. It's not money, it's not things, it's attention. Right?
That's why social
Everything.
media companies are as big as they are.
So where are
Well,
we
that's
going to
it.
direct that attention? Who are we going to give it to?
It's a good point. Because you said a great word there. It is a type of currency. That's why social media companies put so much time, effort, and money into capturing that attention, that currency, as much as they can. And because the nature of the system that we're in today, a capitalist system, which I'm not criticizing, but the point of that system and for these social media companies is to capitalize on your attention. They want as much of it as they can get. And if they have 70% of it now, just to pick a random number, if they have 70% of your attention now, their next board meeting is how can we get that to 75%? How can we get it to 80%? How can we get it more and more? What do we have to do to capture all of your attention? And they're just going to keep asking those questions and making the effort until they have it all. And so that is something we need to be in tune to because currency inherently is something valuable. Your attention is a valuable currency. So do you just want to be giving it away freely? I mean, you only have a limited amount. We
Yeah,
wouldn't do that with our money. We
12
only have
hours.
a
How
limit,
many hours a day are you awake?
right? So, I mean, most of us who are responsible, we have a certain amount of money each month and we budget it. So we say, look, I have to pay my rent. I have to buy my food. I have to buy whatever, X, Y, and Z. I have to pay the bills. So in order to make the best use of my financial currency, I have to do the responsible thing and budget. I'm going to put this money aside for rent. I'm going to put this money aside for food. And we get things done that way. Most of us, anyway, many. But we fail to do the same thing with the other valuable currency that we have, which is our attention. And I think even just by being aware of that it is a currency and that we only have so much to give away, we might be shocked. On most of phones nowadays, you can open up a little app that tells you how much attention you've been putting on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And you'll see, I spent 6 hours on TikTok yesterday. That is my valuable time that I spent mindlessly flipping through videos. So then the question is, what is a reasonable amount of time? How much of that currency am I comfortable giving away? Because it's not, it's entertaining. Some people get stuff out of that. That's fine.
Yeah,
It
but
doesn't
this
have to
is
be
pure
zero.
hypnotism. This is what we
Exactly.
talked about, being hypnotized.
Yeah. I mean, 6 hours, you're in practically a state of hypnosis. Absolutely.
Yeah, don't even know that you are
Yeah.
here, what's going on outside,
Right.
or just
Yeah. Tuned out.
really tuned out into some meaningless scrolling stuff. That it doesn't
Yeah.
enrich your life at all. Or
Yeah.
maybe get a giggle once in a while, but even that is not so funny anymore after hours of scrolling. Just numb.
Where else can you get your giggles? I mean, does it have to be 6 hours on TikTok? Because I can either tune out in other ways or I can tune in different ways and I can sort of scratch that same itch.
Mm.
It's like, I mean, there's so many questions that can be asked here. It's like, why am I scrolling through TikTok for 6 hours? Is it because that's important to me? Or is it because I'm just doing whatever's easiest? Is it laziness? Is it boredom? Is it habit? I mean, there's a million different ways to look at it. And then you can further ask more questions. Okay, so it's a habit. But what are the habits that I want to have? I mean, is this something that I will have built on my own? Did I decide, what would be a great habit to scroll through TikTok for 6 hours? Nobody thinks like
Yeah.
that. It's always, yeah, it's always something we kind of stumble into. So there's a lot of self-examination that we could do that would give us better answers as to how we want to live our lives. And I suspect that for most people, it would not be, sitting on your phone for 6 hours. It would be something else. And you can feel equally as fulfilled, if not much more fulfilled, if you were to answer those questions from self-examination and just spend some time thinking about what you really want.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And what you really want, and what are you running away from?
Yeah.
Because that seeking has two ends, like a stick. Yeah, it has two ends. One is running towards something else, and
Hmm.
another one is running away from what is here. And we have to wake up to what is here. It's not out there, it's here. But that needs to flip and start running towards it.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
cannot be on TikTok or Netflix or anywhere else.
Yeah, you're not going to get the answers there most of the time because people are, I think people can be running from a lot of different things, but the two that I see the most
Mm-hmm.
are some sort of trauma. And, there's different layers to that, right? Maybe it's just like, I didn't like the way that I was raised or my childhood growing up wasn't ideal, right? Those can all be sorts of trauma.
Yeah.
On the other hand, and maybe a little less serious, is just running away from boredom. Maybe it's not trauma. Maybe it's just boredom. And it's like, okay, that's fine. We know we get bored, but what do we do with that? And that's, we could spend a whole hour talking about just that. But yeah, I think that's well said. What are we running away from?
When that movement flips from seeking outward and running away to running towards what is already here, that's when awakening starts to happen. That's
Yeah.
when the right questions start to show up. And then it doesn't matter who does what flips on TikTok or anywhere. Who cares? It's so much more interesting here. This is such a wonderful exploration park. This amusement park is waiting for that attention to come back. Because everything out there is designed to take it away from looking here. So it does take some courage to turn away, to switch it off, to delete the apps, to switch off TV, to switch off internet, and sit and just be with all these cravings and these uncomfortable feelings and starting to notice what is here and getting unhypnotized.
Yeah. Which can definitely be tough. Now, and I said this earlier, our environment has been set up to make it difficult to be uncomfortable, right? Everywhere you turn, there is some level of comfort. We can go, I've heard this term retail therapy, where people go on Amazon and they fulfill their antsiness, they cure that boredom with just buying things they don't need on Amazon. Or maybe it's eating junk food that makes me feel good while I'm eating it. I don't feel great right now, so let me go ahead and eat a bunch of chocolate and candy and sweets and all these different things. There's always something in our environment, at least here in the States where I live, where you don't have to think about much. You can kind of just make easy decisions. They're all around us. But that awakening shift is not easy. It does take work. It's also not comfortable,
Oh
which can
no.
only make it tougher. And so it's something that I think either somebody can benefit from the help of a professional, like we've discussed, or sometimes even much worse, it happens after some kind of traumatic life event, like the death of a loved one or a nasty divorce. Because here, I've seen this a few times where, let's say, a death in the family happens or somebody does go through a nasty divorce. You might see them 6 months later and they lost a bunch of weight or they've improved their lives sometimes, if
Mm-hmm.
they've made that effort. And it's like, why would that happen? What went on there? And I think people start to self-reflect during those moments. It's like, look, I lose a loved one, and then you're kind of forced to say, what do I want with my life? How are things going to be different? The whole dynamic has changed. I lost this loved one in my life, and now I have to relearn my habits. And I don't have that same support system that I used to. So how am I going to account for that? And what's my future going to be like without this person in my life? And so people start to think about all these different questions, and sometimes they find answers, and sometimes they determine, okay, these answers are going to fuel me towards this. And then you find like 6 months later they lost weight.
Hmm.
You don't need to wait for the death of a loved one or a nasty divorce for that to happen. That's kind of what health coaches or other similar professionals try to help people with without that loss. We help people with that reflection. What do you want your life to be like? What's your support system like? And all these different things without that very painful process. So I don't mean to compare health coaching to the death of a loved one, but only in the sense that both situations kind of force you to ask questions that you might not have otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that it's about being ready. Because somebody that is just sitting there scrolling, maybe they are not ready to come to the coach to help them out of the situation. And then life brings up a tragic event or something terrible happening, then they are ready.
Sometimes, but not always,
Not
because it's
always.
not everyone, right? It's not everyone. If the death of a loved one happens, hopefully, the best case scenario is that they do the reflection and they are ready and they ask these questions and they answer these questions. But for other people, and I have compassion for these people, they're not ready. And for
Mm.
some people, it breaks them, it ruins them, it might make them worse than they were before until they get to a point where hopefully maybe one day they're ready. And I think especially those people could use help because we can help you be more ready or figure out what it takes to be more ready.
Oh, that's very well said. Yeah. Because that readiness is one of the keys. Like, okay, first you need to know what you are looking for. And then the second thing I have always asked is, are you ready? Are you ready for that piece or whatever you're looking for? And are you ready right now? And that will open up the whole delusion and illusion and the whole structure of what is in the way of that piece right now because it's available. But you have to leave all the crap. You have to give up on all the belief system of everything. And you need to be ready to a certain degree to be able to do that.
And even that can take a while to unpack too, because you might have someone who says they're ready
Mhm.
and maybe they're not. Maybe they just want to be ready and they've convinced themselves that they are, but really there's other stuff that has to be sorted out first. And even on the flip side, maybe someone has convinced themselves they're not ready, but that's just self-doubt. Maybe they're very ready and they just are a little bit stuck. They just need a gentle nudge.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, these things, there's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, being ready is definitely important. And you can sometimes tell that from the language that they're using too. Well, it's like, I really want to do this. Okay, maybe you're a little bit ready. You want to do this, which is quite different from I need to do this. Maybe you're a little more ready if you need to do this. So it's definitely something to think about.
Mhm. Nicely said.
Thank you. So what's next?
I don't know.
Well, I guess we could talk about critical thinking because I think
Mhm.
that is another skill. We've talked about listening, we've talked about self-examination and being ready. I do think critical thinking is a big part of this, which is a whole other skill. And it's something that my experience in the American education system has failed to train us for. In fact, I think they condition us to do the opposite of critical thinking.
Mhm.
I think at least to a large extent, and I'm not criticizing the teachers. There's a lot of great teachers, but I am criticizing the system. I think the system is set up in a way so that we condition you to obey authority. I'm the teacher. You listen to me. You listen to the textbooks. And your test, you're just going to regurgitate what the textbooks say. And all of this over several years is a conditioning process to, as far as I can tell, get you to be obedient and not critically think. And often critical thinking is discouraged. If you say something that challenges the books, if you say something that challenges the teachers, sometimes you're punished. And what kind of effect does that have on a young developing mind who is curious and wants to ask questions? For many of us, it'll just beat it out of us. So it's not even worth it. I don't want to go to detention again. I don't want to get reprimanded again. I'm just going to do what I'm told. And you can see that. There's evidence for that everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know your thoughts on the pandemic, and I won't be too controversial here, but we've seen over the past few years that many people are quite happy to just do what they're told. The TV told me, the doctor told me, the authorities told me. So I'm just going to go ahead and follow it. I don't care how things seem. I don't care what I feel is right. I'm just going to do what I'm told. And I
Mm.
think if a lot more people asked questions, had skepticism, and challenged authority, I think not only would they be more self-aware and find answers that they might be looking for, but I think they would have developed those critical thinking skills that would better allow them to see the world for how it really is. And unfortunately, it does seem like most people are totally content not critically thinking. And I think that's a very important part of our consciousness and individuality because everybody critically thinks in a different way. We see things from a different perspective. We have different experiences, backgrounds, views, perspectives, and personalities, and all these different things. So I think critically thinking is very important.
Yeah, it's one thing we never been taught. I remember when I realized that everything I know, all the knowledge that I have, is acquired by repeat after me
Yeah.
principle. Like, okay, now it's my opinion. I know how it is. I read the book, I saw a video, and this is how it is. I was just so belief system shattering event to recognize that. So, what beliefs are we carrying? All of them. Only all of them. Everything
And
we
it's getting
know.
more challenging because for a while now, all those views and beliefs have been heavily shaped by social media algorithms, things that based on the things that we like and the things that we pay attention to, we get fed more of that beyond our control.
Yeah.
So if I'm a Republican or if I'm a Democrat, I'm getting fed information that aligns with either of those political views. And I'm just constantly getting exposed to more and more of those ideas. And even further, it's easy for many of us to just click one button to block anyone who sees things differently from us. And then we kind of cultivate or manufacture this echo chamber, this very neat bubble of all the things that we already like. And we built this very comfortable algorithm for us where we're not challenging ourselves with people who have different opinions. And it's so easy. Just look at the comments in anyone's Facebook page or anyone's Instagram page. You know, if I express some kind of political view, even if it's reasonable, and you see things a little differently, people are arguing with each other, people are blocking each other, and real life usually isn't like that. I mean, if you and I right now, we're talking face to face over
Mm-hmm.
Zoom, if you express some kind of view that's differently from mine, I wouldn't rip you apart the same way people do on Facebook or Instagram. We would be able to cooperate a little more. Okay, yeah, you see things a little differently. That's great. I mean, I have a different perspective, but I'm sure we have a lot more in common than this one thing that we disagree on. And so social media has really distorted human interaction and it's I think weakened our ability to get along with people that we see things differently just a little bit on.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean I could talk about this forever because this it's kind of a new thing, right? Because the internet is still pretty new, but this group dynamic element of it isn't. I mean, you look as far back as the Roman Colosseum, the whole purpose of that was to get people in the same physical location so that you can hypnotize not an individual, but a group. You entertain them, you give them intoxicants, you coordinate specific messages so that you hypnotize them in a way that gets them all on the same page. This is propaganda 101. And
Mm-hmm.
now you go onto social media and the algorithms do that for us. But more than ever, with artificial intelligence, People can be targeted with all of your unique data specific to you. In an instant, we can target you and coordinate messages that are exactly what we think you want to hear in the best way that's going to shape your mind in the way that we want to. I mean, this is, if we're being real, this is a type of cognitive warfare. It's not being done accidentally. This is being done on purpose. I can go
Yeah.
on and on. I mean, I've said so much there. I should probably pause.
Yeah, but I can see that happening 100%. Yeah. So the invitation here would be to retract the attention from all the external crap that is coming our way and start asking the serious question.
I think it is that, to be more careful and deliberate where we put our attention. That's a big part of it. But I also think after that is accomplished and we're more mindful about where our attention goes, we need to be stronger to those efforts in our environment, because I don't think it's realistic to totally shield ourselves from these influence efforts. I mean, this is the world we live in. We can't create a bubble. I don't think that's the answer, that we isolate ourselves from these efforts. I think once you're awake and you do get it, you've done the self-examination, you know where you want to put your attention, you can strengthen yourself to these efforts in a way where, go ahead, try to influence me. It's not going to work because I'm stronger than that. And that's a whole other level. That really I think the first part has to be accomplished first. That actual awakening has to
Mm-hmm.
be accomplished first, because then once you're awake, then you can be a kind of warrior in the midst of this influence warfare that we find ourselves in.
In the end, it's like Neo, when the bullets are
Yeah.
flying here, he just looks at them and they fall down.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
effect. We cannot stick. You see these things, it's entertainment, fine, but taken it's not taken seriously anymore. It's not taken for the truth. The problem with the belief is that it's taken for the truth. But if we know it's
Right.
a belief, it's an opinion, it's just somebody's view. Everyone can have their own view. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the truth.
Yeah.
What
Well
is true
said.
for me is here. Know yourself. Know what's coming from here, the authentic thing, the authentic expression, what feels true, what resonates,
Absolutely.
and then keep doing that. Like, for example, I'm doing this podcast. Why am I doing it? No, nobody influenced me. Nobody said, you have to do it. It just kind of naturally flown out of having a YouTube channel. And I'm enjoying it so much, and I don't care what other people do. This is my passion. This is my fun.
I would speculate as to, like, so I don't know why exactly you're doing this, but I have my speculative reasons. And so when you think about influence, I see three components, and we've addressed two of them already.
Huh?
So one of them is waking up to the influence,
Uh-huh.
being able to defend yourself. Number two is, once you get to that point, okay, I'm defending myself, but how do I influence myself? If other people are influencing me, what can I do to influence myself? That's number two.
Mm-hmm.
But with you doing this show, I would guess number three is a factor coming into play. It's like, all right, I'm defending myself. Okay, I'm influencing myself. But then how do I influence others ethically? And I don't mean like trying to maliciously or manipulatively push people's buttons and pull their strings. I mean, I'm doing the same thing, right? I'm here talking on a podcast. I have my own podcast. I am making a deliberate effort to influence people,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it's
Mm-hmm.
done in an ethical way, right? How do I do this as ethically as possible? And how do I wake people up? Because whether we realize it or not, anytime we're doing something, we are influencing people. Anyone who's been around kids knows this, because you have to watch what you say and watch what you do. They're like sponges. They soak things up. And if you say a curse word, they're going to say a curse word. So the things that we do have an impression on the people around us. And it's like, well, do I want to just randomly behave and I don't care about the impact that I'm having on the world? Or am I awake and realize that the things that I do trickle outwards? The things that I do have an impact on the world around me. So I want to do the best that I can. I want to exemplify my values. I want to live a good life and say what I know to be true. And so I'm not suggesting you have some sort of plan to influence people in some sort of way, but as far as I can tell, you're awake, you have a strong set of values, you know certain things to be true, and you feel compelled to put that outwardly.
Hmm.
And that has an impact on the world, and one that I think is for the better. And I would imagine you probably feel the same way. It's a good impact on the world.
Hopefully so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's great to talk to you, Mike.
Likewise, Ilona. Thank you.
Do you have any final words or advice for people that want to wake up?
Yeah, be skeptical. Be skeptical of what you hear, whether it's from me or whether it's from your television or your phone or your friends who might have the best intention, but maybe they don't know any better. Maybe they're not awake. Maybe they're just repeating propaganda lines. So I'm not saying be so skeptical that you end up institutionalized from paranoid schizophrenia. You don't want to be that skeptical, but you
That's
do want to
paranoia,
have,
yeah.
right, but you do want to have a healthy sense of skepticism. You want to ask some questions. You don't want to just accept everything that comes your way at face value. So if you really want to be healthy and awake, have a healthy sense of skepticism. But I'm Mike Vera. You can find me at mikevera.com, where you'll find not only my show, but my business, Avantia Health Optimization, where you can try board certified health coaching for just $1 for your first session.
Wow. Oh, that's generous. And I noticed that there are very interesting people on your show as well. So I
Yeah,
recommend guys to listen.
thank you. Yeah, one of my last guests was Dr. Peter McCullough,
Oh yeah.
who is one of the most awake doctors out there. He challenges a lot of the pandemic narratives. And we talked to a lot of other people who honestly very often put their careers on the line to say some of the things that they're saying because we challenge the status quo in health.
Yeah. And that's a whole big new topic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So go to Mike's channel and if you're interested and have a listen and have a watch. It's mind opening for sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, and thank you everyone for watching, for listening. If you like this, hit the like button, subscribe, share with a friend, and yeah, keep asking questions, the right questions.
Absolutely.
Bye for now.